chatter and noise, which is great. The discussion was very good, so I'm happy to see that. I hope it was beneficial for you. I hope it was beneficial for new coaches and experienced coaches. Hopefully you can associate some faces and names and look for each other on the fields this season. I think that'll be a positive thing. Hopefully you found unique ways to work together to teach these kids the game this season. I'm very encouraged by the discussion I overheard, and I think that'll have a very positive impact as we head into the season. So, a brief question and answer. If there are questions that I didn't get around to or things that you think are league-wide concerns, now would be a great time to bring those up. Are there any thoughts you had, any clarifications you need? Otherwise, there's one item I want to bring up as well that I was alluding to. So any questions off the bat?
How many practices do you plan to have at quarter versus?
I know a couple of you have already started practice. My intent, which I didn't express very well, was to get through this first and then start practicing. So my idea was to have 2 practices before we get into our first game. So my thought was that most of you would practice for the first time heading into next week. And then one final practice that week before our first game. Good question. You know, as I think we've mentioned a few times, and maybe I haven't been crystal clear on it, we're only going to ask you to practice 1 time per week. We've kind of sold this to parents as a 1 practice, 1 game commitment. So try as much as you can to hold to that. I also know that many of you have volunteered to coach just within the last 2 weeks, and thank you. I had 20 spots I had to fill just in the last 2 weeks. So you saved my life on that one. So I really appreciate all of you who have stepped up to my pleas in the last 2 weeks to take that spot. I know a lot of you did so with conflicts that we already know about. Again, that's fine. Vacation, it's summer, so vacations are totally understandable. When you're able to work out, when you're able to flex those practice times or pick a different day on a particular week, go ahead and do it. If you have an assistant that can take it for you, great. If you've got to skip a week because you're out of town, so be it. You're the volunteer, okay? This needs to be convenient and rewarding for you, you first and foremost. The families will adjust. That did get me into one other thought I had that I wanted to talk about here in terms of scheduling practice. Many of you are in the process of scheduling practice, and I kind of want to make a similar point. And I've told many of you this already, but make sure that you're not trying to please everyone, because it's impossible, okay? You have to set a location and a time and a day that works for you first and foremost, because you are a volunteer. Recognize you're going to get a little bit of grief from parents at times. It's not always going to work perfectly for them, and you know what? You volunteered. They didn't. Okay? So I would encourage you to work with them and have that conversation with them and work something out that works as well as you can make it work. But don't expect that you're going to please every single parent on your team. Okay? Make sure first and foremost, first priority is it's got to work for you. Okay? Okay, any other thoughts, questions?
Are there kids waitlisted?
I was able to place most of the kids in the younger age groups, so 3rd and 4th and below. I do have a couple of kids at the 5th and 6th level that I was not able to get in, just because we're jam-packed.
So we're going to email from a mom saying she was not having her kid play.
Not having a kid play.
No.
What age? Is it C-ball?
T-ball.
Talk to me afterwards, because I may be able to fill that spot, so let me know. I'll talk to you afterwards. Other thoughts, questions?
Just one point to make is we do provide the t-shirts for the teams. We do not, like a lot of baseball leagues, provide hats. So please encourage your players to bring a hat to practice and to the game.
That is a good segue into my next point, because we had a brief conversation about equipment needs, and something that I have not seen mentioned in any literature that we previously handed out, and so it kind of just avoided my radar, but I think it's a great point. For the leagues where the boys will be playing catcher, I would highly recommend, actually, I would almost require that you have a conversation with that catcher and that catcher's parents about investing in a cup. Okay? We did not put that in the literature, but as soon as that was mentioned to me, I thought, absolutely, that's a very wise thing to encourage. I would strongly encourage you to do so. So that would be from Coach Pitch on up.
So, I'm sorry, but my experience is every kid wants to play catcher every week. So, and maybe we can't do that then. But if you're making it a requirement, we doing it, say it, but who's doing the cup check? No, I don't want to. Yeah.
I keep a cup in my catching bag, and we have a parent who's third, fourth grade, so they need help with their gear on. We have a parent help them get dressed. Here's the cup. You don't want to wear it, you don't get it.
Or have them knock it themselves.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely, there's no question, knock the cup, if you want to play catcher, knock the cup, knock. If it's there, they can play, if it's not, they can't.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, I thought not. That's what it is, like, especially with older kids, they want to slide. They're not sticking up their knees.
The comment over here was pants, especially for the older kids who are sliding. Good idea. Our fields are very well cared for, but they're not velvety soft either, so probably a good idea.
Yeah, that brings up a question about the rules.
Yeah.
Last year, there was no sliding for first and second modified, but there's no, it's not in the rules this year. Are they allowed to slide?
It's not in the rules this year, huh? Let's put it this way, my intent was to not introduce sliding until third and fourth.
So no sliding.
My intent was no sliding in first and second. Because I think there are enough other fundamentals that we're going to be introducing where that's not something we need them focusing on.
What about on like?
Because you know what they love the most? They love sliding and getting busy. My kid does it.
What about on the actual chance
Play out that scenario.
Let's say the kid playing ball and has a penalty ball. Kids coming to school, who speed home plate. You want to run in the home plate at the kid trying to stay.
No, you don't want to vision. You don't necessarily want to slide.
Yeah, we typically have not let them slide first and second grade because one, it's hard to teach at this level. Two, if they do think they know how, they don't know how. So they're more than likely going to hurt themselves trying. And close plays at home, I mean, maybe 1 in 1,000 might happen. I mean, it just doesn't happen in first and second grade. Yeah, I mean, anything close would be, they're typically not at that.
So just to reiterate,
I mean, they usually
there's
stop
going to be
really
no sliding, same ball through first and second grade modified. Sliding will be introduced or it can be introduced at third and fourth. Now, that will be completely dependent on where you judge the level of your team to be. You know, that's, I would say as a skill, I don't know, maybe someone disagree with me. I don't know that ought to be a priority. And I think kids will also think that's the most fun and zero in on that. We'll zero in on it a little too much. But, you know, for close plays, they should have that in their arsenal. They should be able to identify when to slide in their case. Starting at third and fourth grade, I think is appropriate. Just to wrap up the cup discussion. So if you are in charge of a team that will be catching, make sure you have that conversation with the kids you've identified as being interested in catching. And if an opportunity arises to send out another parent email, I will make sure to make that point in that email as well. If you have a child that's interested in catching, it's expected that you provide that piece of equipment. Okay?
So we don't forfeit none of our families go out now and practice the cut that they otherwise would have had, and I don't have to catch. I'm not trying to be difficult, but I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I don't have it as a requirement, but now I'm thinking maybe we want to even invest in a couple to have in the fields in case someone doesn't have one. So we'll look into that. I think that might be a good idea.
Yeah, 'cause I know that was this year I'm coaching the girls, but last year I was coaching the good boys. I only had a couple that wanted that would be willing to catch.
Yeah.
They weren't able to at that point.
Yeah.
Invest in them.
So I strongly agree with the sentiment, and yeah, we'll look into at least having some on site that can be used if need be. I don't know, maybe we'll even start making that part of the equipment bags in the future, who knows? Might be a good idea. Any other questions? Okay, last thing.
Yeah, what's this?
Last thing. As you saw as you went through those lesson plans, the idea with these lesson plans is to have everybody working at essentially the same pace and introducing the same skills. This has a bigger picture in mind. And I had this conversation with a couple of tables. This has a bigger picture in mind. And this picture begins with T-ball and modified. We are trying to get a predictable, set skill level in place by the time they get to 3rd and 4th grade. And by the time they get to 3rd and 4th grade, that's where some of the more advanced strategies, techniques, and things, and the individualism can start to bloom a little bit. The individual ability, the individual skill can start to bloom a little bit. But to get to that point, we need to not be spending a unusual amount of time introducing the most basic fundamentals. So where we're trying to get is a point where we know that the kids who are passing up to 3rd and 4th grade have a solid foundation of skills, which allows them to continue their progression, and anyone who does come in new, we're able to catch them up quickly. Okay, so that's the bigger picture that's here. Now, that also recognizes that some of the kids that are currently in 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th didn't necessarily have that. And so we need a way to catch them up too. And what I mentioned was that while I handed you a list of age-appropriate skills to be working on, this gets back to the foundation we're building in Modified. So if you've got a kid that has never done this before, and they don't even know proper grip, they don't even know proper catching technique, that resource is available, that resource we're giving to the Modified coaches is available for all coaches. So if you've got kids that you need to go through those building blocks with, that's something I want to put in your hands so that you can use it with them, okay? And this is a document, like I have here. It's a 2-page document that walks through first 2 weeks of skill introduction, okay? That's something I will gladly give you if you feel you need it. So the first step is to evaluate the team you have, and if you find you've got a handful of kids who need this, we will give that to you. And then the 3rd and 4th grade plan and the 5th and 6th grade plan then builds off of that foundation, okay? Now, if you are, last piece, if you are coaching any of the older grades, we've got these 2 resources available. Coaching Youth Softball, it's in long book. It is 210 pages, okay? Baseball is about the same, but it's great information. And it's a lot of great drills and techniques you can use to do some of the more complex skill development that you're going to see in your list. If you feel you could use this, if you're actually going to read this and will use this as a resource, if this is your thing, come see me. We've got copies of this I can share with you, okay? If you would rather I put in your hand that bi-weekly lesson plan, which is my intent heading into this season, that's fine too. That's absolutely fine. You know, we kind of get paid to do that research and provide it to you, and I'm more than happy to do that. But if you feel that, you know, you could utilize this and make use of it with your team, see me.
When can we expect to receive this lesson?
So this will get you through your first game. I will have that next plan to you immediately after that first game.
Cool.
Okay?
This is easy to Google too. There's tons of times.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other questions? No question.
Just watching T-ball last year, it seemed like there was
never consistency? Do we have 20 minutes of practice and then 40 minutes finish, or do we just play at 60 minutes?
Very good question. The question was for T-ball, what is the format that we expect with these games each week? The expectation is that we will take the first 20 minutes to either review what you worked on in practice earlier that week. If for some reason you weren't able to hold a practice that week, it gives you an opportunity to introduce the skills that would have been introduced, and then move into a game. Now, a game at the T-ball level is at most 2 innings. In most cases, it's like an inning and a half. Okay? So this is a good opportunity to introduce the skills and then roll right into a game setting where they can display what they just learned. That's the intent. So it's about 20 minutes of practice, 40 minutes of game. Good question.